Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
This time, we're taking a look at the world of crypto.
We've got a whole bunch of articles and posts to go through, and
Right.
some of this stuff is pretty wild.
We've got retail investors going crazy for Bitcoin ETFs.
A fake curve finance app sneaking onto the Apple Store. It's a lot to cover,
Yeah.
but that's what we're here for.
We'll try to make sense of it all.
Right.
Maybe even uncover a hidden gem or two along the way.
Personally, I'm pretty curious about this Metcalfe's Law thing.
And what it means for crypto.
Okay,
Luckily, I've got our expert here to help us break it all down.
let's dive right in.
All right, so first up, this Binance report really caught my eye.
It says that something like 80% of the demand for Bitcoin ETFs
Wow.
is coming from everyday people like you and me.
That seems like a pretty big deal.
It does.
Does this mean that mainstream crypto confidence is finally taking off?
It could be. It definitely suggests that retail investors are becoming more comfortable with crypto.
What I find interesting is that this same report shows that institutional investors are being way more cautious.
It's like two completely different approaches.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
Do you think it's just that regular people are more likely to chase the hype?
Well, I think there's definitely some FOMO going on.
You know, the fear of missing out.
Right.
Retail investors are often drawn in by the possibility of fast gains.
Especially with Bitcoin's history of price swings.
But then there's also the accessibility factor.
ETFs offer a more familiar and more regulated way to invest in Bitcoin,
Compared to buying it directly on an exchange.
which can feel intimidating for newcomers.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's less about being tech savvy and more about dipping their toes in the crypto pool
Exactly.
without diving in head first.
Right.
But what about institutional investors
Institutional investors, well, they have stricter regulations to worry about.
and risk management protocols to adhere to?
Plus, they're often managing huge portfolios.
So their approach is usually more strategic and long-term focused.
So while some people are sprinting,
Others are in it for the marathon.
I like that analogy.
But hold on.
Wouldn't an ETF, even with all its regulations, still be a pretty risky move for a new investor?
That's a great question. And it really highlights how important it is to understand the details of different investment approaches.
With ETFs, you're not actually owning the Bitcoin.
You're buying shares of a fund that holds Bitcoin.
So there's an extra layer of management and fees.
Gotcha. What about taxes?
Are those handled differently with ETFs versus just buying Bitcoin?
Yeah, taxes can be very different. It depends on a lot of things.
For example, selling shares of a Bitcoin ETF might be treated as a capital gain or loss,
But selling Bitcoin directly
Hmm.
could have totally different tax implications.
depending on how long you held it and your jurisdiction's specific rules.
Wow. It's way more complicated than I realized.
It is.
I guess you really have to do your research before you jump in.
You really do.
Okay, so we've got retail investors maybe getting a little FOMO.
Institutions playing it cool and steady.
But then we've got this other layer of excitement with Tether making headlines.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest stablecoin in the world is under federal investigation.
And I have to admit,
I'm not totally clear on why that's such a big deal.
could you break it down for us?
Sure. So stablecoins are designed to maintain a stable value.
Usually tied to a fiat currency, like the US dollar.
Tether, being the largest stablecoin, plays a critical role in the crypto world.
Because it provides a less volatile option for traders
You can think of it like a safe haven.
within this really turbulent market.
Okay, so if Tether is supposed to be this rock in the crypto storm,
What happens if this investigation shakes people's confidence?
well, that's the big question.
If people start to doubt Tether's stability?
It could set off this domino effect across the whole crypto market.
Oh, wow.
Remember, a lot of trading activity relies on Tether being pegged to the US dollar.
Right.
If that peg weakens, it could lead to a huge sell-off and increased volatility across the board.
Yikes. A crypto earthquake.
So is this investigation just about Tether?
Or is it a sign that a crackdown on crypto is coming?
It's definitely a sign. Regulators are starting to take a closer look at crypto
Stablecoins have been under scrutiny for a while now.
because of their potential to impact financial stability
So this investigation could lead to stricter regulations.
on stablecoins and potentially other parts of the crypto market too.
Wow. Things could get really interesting.
Yeah.
So we've got everyday investors
Big institutions,
and
now governments.
all kind of circling around this crypto world.
It feels like everyone's trying to find their place.
I think you're right.
And speaking of finding a place,
There's this interesting little tidbit about Microsoft potentially getting into Bitcoin.
oh yeah,
I read about this SEC filing, where they're asking shareholders to vote on a possible Bitcoin investment.
No, I'm no tech giant.
But that sounds like a pretty big deal.
It definitely caught my attention. The filing's pretty vague, though.
So we're left to speculate about the specifics.
Okay, so let's speculate.
What could this mean for Microsoft? What kind of investment are we even talking about here?
Are they going to buy a ton of Bitcoin?
Or is it something more subtle?
It's hard to say for sure.
It could be a direct investment in Bitcoin.
But it could also be some kind of strategic partnership.
With a blockchain company.
Or maybe even the development of their own blockchain services.
We need more information.
So many possibilities.
Right.
But why would a company like Microsoft even bother with Bitcoin?
I mean, they're already Microsoft.
Well, you have to remember, Microsoft's a company that's constantly changing and adapting.
They're probably exploring how they can use blockchain technology
To improve their existing products.
or to create new ones.
So it's less about Bitcoin itself.
And more about the power of blockchain as a whole.
I think that's a good way to look at it.
Are they trying to become like the pioneers of a blockchain-powered world?
That's definitely possible. Blockchain has so much potential.
To revolutionize tons of industries.
From supply chains to data security.
Microsoft might be trying to position themselves as a leader in this emerging space.
That's pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
We've gone from everyday people buying Bitcoin ETFs
To big institutions being cautious.
to tech giants shaping the future with blockchain.
It's a lot to process.
It certainly highlights how dynamic the crypto space is.
And how fast it's changing.
It really does.
And we haven't even talked about meme coins yet.
Oh yeah, meme coins.
That's a whole other level of crazy.
Even serious market analysts are starting to pay attention.
Yeah,
Which is kind of wild considering these coins usually start as a joke.
I know.
So how do they even work?
Are they actually investments?
Or are they just internet funny money?
And how are they getting so much attention?
They're even overshadowing Bitcoin at times.
Help me understand this phenomenon.
Meme coins are interesting. They're a great example of how social trends and online communities can influence the market.
They tap into this power of going viral, community building.
And let's be
It's
honest,
a good dose of FOMO.
I definitely get the FOMO part.
But are we talking about real value here?
Or is it all hype and speculation?
Should we be taking them seriously?
The value of meme coins is often driven by hype and speculation.
Yeah.
They don't usually have the underlying technology or real-world uses that give traditional cryptocurrencies value.
Like Bitcoin.
With meme coins, it's more about the community
Indians themselves.
and this shared belief that the coin will take off.
Or as they say, go to the moon.
To the moon. I love that.
Okay, so it's like a combination
It's
of
social commentary
internet culture.
and a whole lot of gambling.
You could put it that way. But remember, even though it might feel like a game,
There are real risks.
meme coins can be incredibly volatile
They're prone to pump and dump schemes.
and susceptible to scams.
Right, because at the end of the day,
Mhm.
it's still your money.
Exactly.
It's like a high-stakes meme lottery.
Which reminds me, Mike shared this hilarious YouTube video about meme coins.
I have to remember to link it in the show notes
That's a great idea. It's always good to give people more resources.
if they want to learn more.
Okay, so speaking of learning more,
Let's switch gears for a second and talk about security.
even with all this innovation and excitement,
The crypto world still has its fair share of dangers.
it does.
Did you hear about the U.S. government?
Losing $20 million worth of crypto to hackers.
Yeah, I did.
And it turns out,
This is actually connected to that massive Bitfinex hack.
from back in 2016.
That's right. That whole incident really raises some concerns about the security of crypto wallets,
Even ones managed by government agencies.
if they can be compromised.
It really shows how vulnerable all digital assets are.
It's kind of unsettling.
If the government can get hacked,
What does that mean for the rest of us?
that's the question.
And then there's this whole thing about a fake Curve Finance app that snuck onto the Apple Store.
I know, that fake app, it actually climbed all the way to the top 100 finance apps.
Wow.
It tricked people into connecting their wallets.
And exposed them to all sorts of DeFi scams.
Okay, DeFi scams.
Well,
Well, can we back up for a second? What exactly is DeFi?
DeFi stands for decentralized finance.
It's basically a system of financial applications.
They are built on blockchain technology,
And designed to cut out traditional middlemen.
like banks,
So it's like a DIY financial system.
but on the blockchain.
Exactly.
That sounds cool.
But also maybe a little risky.
Yeah, it can be.
Decentralization has its benefits.
But it also creates opportunities for scams.
Like,
What kinds of scams are we talking about here?
well, one common scam is called a rug pull.
That's where developers create a DeFi project
Attract investors.
and then disappear with everyone's money.
Then there are phishing scams
where attackers create fake websites or apps
that look like real DeFi
to
platforms
try and steal your login info.
and drain your wallet.
Right.
So it's like the Wild West out there.
What about this fake Curve Finance app?
Was that a rug pull?
No. That one was designed for phishing,
People thought they were connecting to the real platform?
but they were actually handing their login info over to scammers.
It just goes to show how these attackers exploit people's trust and brand recognition.
To take advantage of them.
So basically, we all need to be super careful
Double check everything.
before connecting our wallet to anything.
Absolutely. Don't just click on any link.
Or download any app without checking if it's legit.
Do your research.
Read reviews.
And only use reputable platforms.
Okay, I'm officially paranoid now.
But maybe that's a good thing,
It's better to be safe than sorry.
especially in this crazy crypto world.
That's for sure.
All right, so we've covered a lot.
We've got investors big and small,
Government agencies,
tech giants,
and even meme-loving internet communities.
all interacting in this crazy crypto space.
And somewhere in all of this.
Is this thing called Metcalfe's Law?
Okay?
I remember you mentioning this in a previous deep dive.
I did.
I have to admit.
My memory's a little fuzzy on this one.
Could you give us a quick refresher on what it is?
Of course. Metcalfe's law states that the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of its users.
Okay, that sounds pretty technical.
Can you break it down for those of us who aren't math geniuses?
Sure. Think of it like a social network. Like if you were the only person on Facebook.
It wouldn't be very valuable, would it?
Not really, no.
But as more people join,
the network becomes more valuable.
because there are more connections and more potential for interaction
So the value grows exponentially.
as the number of users increases.
Okay, I get it. More users equal more value.
Exactly.
But how does that apply to the world of crypto?
Well, you can think of a blockchain, like Bitcoin's blockchain as a network.
The more people who use cryptocurrencies on that network.
The more valuable that network becomes.
This actually helps explain why Bitcoin's price has gone up.
As more people have started using it,
So it all comes down to adoption.
the more people use it.
The more valuable it becomes.
That's the idea.
That actually ties back to that Binance report.
And all those retail investors buying into Bitcoin ETFs.
You got it.
That influx of new users could really push up the value of the whole crypto market.
At least according to Metcalfe's Law.
It's one of the reasons why so many people are so optimistic about crypto's future,
That is pretty exciting.
but also kind of nerve-wracking.
it's both.
I mean, we've also talked about all the risks,
The scams.
the volatility.
It's like this crypto roller coaster just keeps going up and down.
That's a great way to describe it.
And you never know what's coming next.
You don't.
It's definitely a roller coaster.
It is.
And it's important to remember
that there are potential ups and downs.
before you decide to get on board.
I completely agree.
Okay, so speaking of upsides,
We can't ignore Jamie Katz's prediction.
that crypto could grow 50 times its current value.
50x.
50x.
I'm all for being optimistic.
But is that even realistic?
What would it take for crypto to reach those kinds of heights?
It's certainly a bold prediction,
If not possible.
but you have to approach these claims carefully.
Okay, skepticism engaged.
So what could actually lead to that kind of explosive growth?
And on the other side of the coin,
What could totally derail it all?
well, there are several factors that could fuel that kind of growth.
Increased institutional adoption would be huge.
If major players like pension funds and hedge funds started putting money into crypto.
It could have a massive impact.
Okay.
Favorable regulations would also help.
If the environment for crypto businesses and investors became more stable and secure.
It could attract a lot more capital.
So the more legitimate crypto seems to race the mainstream.
The more it could take off.
That's the idea.
What else?
Technological advancements are also important.
Things like layer 2 solutions that can make transactions faster and cheaper.
And of course, the development of new use cases
That go beyond just buying and selling
could contribute to wider adoption.
and potentially lead to huge growth.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the optimistic side.
What about the things that could ruin it all?
Well, on the other hand, we have to think about the possibility of tighter regulations.
That could stifle innovation.
Or make it harder for people to use crypto.
Security breaches could also be a problem.
Especially if they affect major exchanges or platforms
That could really damage trust.
and trigger huge sell-offs.
Right.
And then there's always the risk of market manipulation and scams.
That could hurt the reputation of the whole industry.
So it's like this balancing act,
Between all these different forces.
pushing and pulling the crypto market in opposite directions.
Yeah, it's a complex system.
It sounds like trying to predict the future of crypto is about as easy as predicting the weather 3 months out.
That's a great analogy. It's a complex system with a lot of moving parts.
And there are no guarantees.
That's both exciting and terrifying.
But at least it's never boring.
Definitely not boring. And that's part of what makes the crypto space so fascinating.
It's always changing.
And there's always something new to learn.
I completely agree.
And speaking of learning,
We've covered a lot of ground today.
we have
From Bitcoin ETFs to meme coins.
to government hacks and Metcalfe's law.
It's been quite a ride.
It has.
Before we wrap up,
I'd love to hear your thoughts on where all of this is headed.
what are the big takeaways from our deep dive so far?
I think the main thing to remember is that the crypto world is really dynamic and changing quickly.
We're seeing more interest from everyday investors,
More scrutiny from regulators,
potential involvement from big tech companies like Microsoft.
and the rise of meme coins as a cultural and market force
All of these things are shaping the future of this space,
in ways that are hard to predict.
but really interesting to watch.
Well said. It's a wild ride for sure.
And it sounds like we're just getting started.
I think so. We are.
And that brings up an important question.
For our listeners,
Okay.
what role will you play in this evolving landscape?
May you be a spectator just watching from the sidelines?
An investor dipping your toes into the market?
You are an active participant shaping the future of finance.
That is the question, isn't it?
It's a big one.
What will our role be in all of this?
It's definitely something for us all to think about.
It is. The choice is yours.
But no matter what you choose, it's important to stay informed.
You really need to understand the complexities of this space.
I agree.
Knowledge is power.
Especially in the always changing world of crypto.
That's for sure.
So to all our listeners out there,
Keep exploring
keep learning.
and keep diving deep.
We'll be right here with you.
Exactly.